What's up, movie nerds? It's your girl, Cece, and let's get candid about How to Train Your Dragon. My gosh, magic. Pure magic. This is what a live-action remake is supposed to look like. How to Train Your Dragon was simply amazing because it stuck true to the original.
I didn't sell out.
It was pleasurable to fans and newcomers alike because it didn't try to change the fundamentals of the story or turn it into something it wasn't. It was almost the same movie as the original, almost beat for beat. Carbon copies are what the fans want for remakes, not some new wave garbage using the same name for publicity.
I don't want this stuff, okay?
I'm so glad that DreamWorks stuck to the original instead of going the way of Snow White or Lilo and Stitch. I loved this remake, and it was exciting to finally get my family to enjoy this franchise as well.
Watch this.
Yeah. I mean, watching this live-action remake made them want to go and watch the original. It's great. We all watched it the next day and we were just shocked and amazed at just how similar the two were. That's what you want. I mean, sure, the original is always going to be better because there's just things that you can do in animation that you just can't do in real life. And plus, it's always gonna have that special place in your heart by being the first one.
Yo, this is the best thing ever.
It was just simply an amazing movie. But this live-action remake certainly did the best with staying true to the original. And as far as live-action remakes go, this one is light years above any remake that I've ever seen. Although I did enjoy Aladdin a lot. Like, Aladdin stuck pretty close to the original as well, so that's good.
Your friends do this.
But that's just my initial review of the movie. Keep on watching to hear the full review and whether or not you want to give this movie a shot. There will be spoilers in the reasons for the rating.
You have been warned.
So let's get this party started.
I mean, really, let's do this, mother!
First up is acting, which I give a 7 out of 10. Just like Lilo and Stitch, this review is going to also be based on the original because it did come first and this is a remake. So I thought this acting was well done. I think everyone's hearts and minds were present in this film, and I really think that's due in part to the practicality of a lot of the sets and props. And the fact that the original director was brought back for this movie. Also, they brought back the original actor for Stoic. That always helps. Now, I do think that there were times where Astrid's actor didn't act as well as the others. And one scene that I think could have used a bit more acting was when Hiccup and Astrid were kind of kidnapped by Toothless to go to the dragon's nest.
What's going on?
I don't know. Toothless. You gotta get us out of here, bud.
I mean, with all those dragons surrounding them and flying to the same place, they should have been a lot more shocked and confused and bewildered. They just kind of seemed to roll with it in this live action versus the original where they were just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
Get out of the pressure!
I think the acting was a little downplayed in that certain scene. But all in all, I think the acting lended itself very well to this movie. I will say though, the original did have just a little bit more something within all of the characters that this live action remake did not have, but it is also some very hard footsteps to follow. For a live action remake, this one did pretty daggum good with the acting.
Wow, that's impressive.
Next is the story and script, which I give an 8 out of 10. This adaptation was almost perfect, sticking to the original story and script in almost every way. But there were some things that were changed, too drawn out, or just not there. Now, I was going to talk about Hiccup not having his fishbone line or the fact that he brought his shield, like it didn't get stuck between the rocks when he went to confront Toothless, but I did see some promotional material that the director was in talking about how Hiccup in the animated movie was easy to make a lot smaller than the Vikings, whereas in this one, a 17-year-old boy is going to look and be as tall as a 17-year-old boy. So they kind of had to tweak the stuff to make his differences stand out more instead of the fact that he was just small. So I can look past that stuff being removed, no problem.
Mason, though he's 15, is not a pipsqueak. We leaned more into his otherness, like he is a misfit.
Also, there were very teeny little differences in this movie that just don't need to be talked about, because sometimes you just have to change some stuff to make it work for a live action. Instead, I'll talk about a couple of major points that I noticed that I think should have been done a little bit better to make the story and script a 10 out of 10. First off, the scene where Stoic was hyping up the Vikings in the war room was dragged out far too long. It should have been a quick one and done, just like in the original.
No, that's way too much.
Secondly, I think a little something is removed from the story when they made the twins older than all of the other kids, especially with the fact that they were held back in their training about 3 years. I mean, come on, why is Hiccup the worst Viking that Burke has ever seen when the twins can't even finish basic training?
Touchy subject. I've flunked dragon training a few times.
It was 4 times, actually.
Next, I think the scene where Astrid and Hiccup are talking over the dragon book when they first started training about how the dragons are misunderstood was premature. They never talked about that in the original until a bit later. To have Astrid just not brush Hiccup off and leave him completely, and then having Hiccup basically say that he doesn't believe what the Vikings believe and he's on the side of the dragons, was just way too soon. It should have been done later, just like it was in the original.
So I guess we'll share?
Reddit.
All mine then.
But these little changes, they're just little nitpicks that I saw that could have just been changed a little bit to make the story that much better. These little changes I can look past. Now there is one change that is just too much to ignore, only because it's kind of like a plot hole, only because it was missing completely. And that was a scene where Hiccup was feeding Toothless and the itty bitty dragons came over to try and get fed as well. Toothless didn't like that. The itty bitty dragon tried to fight back by blowing fire at him, and Toothless blew his own fire right back into the dragon's mouth, and it kind of blew up in his mouth, causing the dragon to be dazed.
Not so fireproof on the inside, are you?
This was such a big scene to be removed from the live-action remake because it showed how Hiccup and Toothless had the grand idea at the end to do the same thing to the big mother dragon that they had to fight. I mean, Toothless did this first to the itty bitty dragon as a knee-jerk reaction. Hiccup took notice and used that in the big fight at the end. I think it pulls the story down a bit because why would he have that idea? This whole movie was him learning from his dragon and his surroundings. Without this foresight, why would he have done what he did? That removal takes the story and script from a 10 to an 8 for me. But honestly, these are really just nitpicks in the long run. Without this scene, the live action movie is still perfectly understandable and enjoyable, especially if you never watched the original.
No, it's perfect.
But since I had watched the original, I could tell that it was missing and I was like, well, that's just too bad because that's a really key point into why he had that idea. So to conclude this long thing, as far as I'm concerned, this story was seriously really great because it stuck so close to the original. Sure, it strayed a little bit, but no new path was created. It always found its way back to the original story, and nothing huge, none of the fundamentals were ever changed.
Wasn't that just magnificent?
Next up is the theme, which I give a 9 out of 10. I think the theme was standing up and doing what's right in the face of adversity. And I think that's a pretty bang-up theme, and it goes right along with its predecessor.
Nice.
Now for the details, which I also give a 9 out of 10. I believe that this world was totally believable for the adaptation. It basically looked like it was lifted right out of the animated movie. Also, the way that the dragons looked was awesome too.
I could have sworn that.
I loved that they looked so familiar and similar to the animated movie, but had its own personal flair as well. The costumes and props were awesome too. It made the actors look larger than life and more like the characters than themselves, which is what you want.
The attention to detail is excellent.
Now, I will say it was weird that Hiccup's green undershirt was a hoodie, but I can look past it. Also, there were bits in this movie that wasn't as grand or spectacular as it was in the animated movie, like the dragon's nest in both instances while we traveled to it and were in it. But I suppose that's the risk you run when it's live action. But all in all, the details really pleased me.
The reign of the dragons.
Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the full review. So here's your spoiler warning right now.
Spoiler alert.
And let's get into the reasons for the rating. Now this movie was a PG action fantasy film, and yeah, I think it fits the bill totally for that. So let's talk about it.
The gross stuff.
I think the only gross thing in this film was when Hiccup ate the fish that Toothless coughed up into his lap because he wanted to share. It was much more gross in the live action than the animated movie because the fish looked so real and it was just covered in slime. It was just gross.
Time for violence.
Basically, all the violence in this movie was beat for beat the same as the original. Almost. Now, Now, there were a couple of moments where things were drawn out a little bit, but it was nothing more than PG, and it was nothing more than the animated movie.
It's been done before.
And also, talking about violence here, it was mostly cartoonish because it had to stay PG. Nobody got damaged or seriously hurt on screen. Now, Hiccup did lose his leg at the end of the movie, but you never saw that happen, you just saw that he had a prosthetic. I mean, as a PG film, the directors had to have kids in mind, so truly, nothing bad about this movie. I think the scariest thing would be the dragons themselves, because they did look pretty real, but the fact that dragons aren't real, I think kids will clock into that and be pretty okay with it.
I can totally handle anything this baby can dish out.
I mean, if we're being honest, I think the Minecraft movie was a little bit more scary than this because of how grotesque some of the characters looked. So if your kid could handle that movie, they can totally handle this. Even so, parental guidance with kids is great because you'd rather be safe than sorry, you know?
Prepare for the fight scene.
Overall, I give this movie a 9 out of 10 for a live-action adaptation and an 8 out of 10 if we're looking at it in the lens of the original movie. This movie is simply a must-see for fans and newcomers alike. It was gorgeous, magical, and larger than life, as an adaptation should be. I've never walked out of a theater feeling so elated and full of vigor after watching a live-action adaptation, which is saying something because adaptations of animated movies usually suck. I was ready to be fully disappointed, especially after just watching such a terrible remake that is Lilo and Stitch.
I don't want to see that or think of it again.
But I was pleasantly surprised. And you know what? A little angry at filmmakers who just can't stick to the original script like DreamWorks did. I have a newfound respect for the folks at DreamWorks. Truly.
You've outdone yourself, Peter.
I mean, they really showed Disney how it's done in every sense of the word. For a company that's such a powerhouse, I really don't think Disney knows what it's doing anymore. And they certainly don't have the guts or wherewithal to do something new or what they used to do, and they certainly don't have the love for the audience anymore. DreamWorks, thank you sincerely for not mucking this beloved franchise up and also keeping the heart and soul of it alive.
It's so beautiful.
I truly can't wait to see what you do next.
Wrap that up and give it to a child on Christmas, because we're done.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this review. Also, big shout out to Mary P. We had a riveting conversation after we came out of the theater because she was equally as excited as I was. I mean, it's always awesome to make a new friend over the love of a good movie. Also, make sure to comment down below your thoughts and what movie you want me to review next. Honestly, I think it's gonna be the K-pop Demon Hunters that's coming out on Netflix, so keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss a review just like this. Also, click right here to see the most recent episode of the Candid Cinema podcast. Also, if you click right here, you can enjoy the worst adaptation that I've ever seen, or any other reviews I've done, because it's a playlist. And if you want to see my shorts or anything else, click right here to go to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and just remember, right here at Candid Cinema, it's okay to talk, it's okay to text, and I will see you later. Bye!